By 1978, a Rhodesian Light Infantry trooper could make 3 combat parachute jumps in a single day, more than a World War II paratrooper would do in an entire career. 400 men holding 150,000 square miles executed over 14,000 jumps and recorded an 80-to-1 kill ratio, yet watched their war unravel. How could the most combat-experienced paratroopers in history lose everything? The answer begins with impossible arithmetic and a desperate innovation. Rhodesia in the mid-1970s was an island under siege. A white minority of just 250,000 governed a country of nearly 6 million black Africans, spread across a territory the size of California, 150,000 square miles of bush, river, and escarpment. In reality, it was indefensible. The borders stretched for thousands of miles, touching Mozambique and Zambia, both now safe havens for Zanla and Zipra guerrillas, armed and trained by communist patrons. International sanctions bit deep. No outside country would sell the government so much as a rifle, let alone helicopters or jet fuel. Even South Africa, once a quiet supporter, began to pull back. The world had turned its back, and the Rhodesian military stood alone. Every number told the same story. Against the swelling tide of insurgents, the Rhodesian Light Infantry, the RLI, fielded just 400 to 500 effectives at any given moment. These men were expected to hold the line, not along a single front, but everywhere: villages, farms, railway lines, and border crossings. The enemy did not come in tanks or massed columns. Instead, guerrilla bands slipped across the frontier at night, melting into the bush, striking where the defenders were weakest. Zanla and Zipra infiltration routes multiplied with every month. Tracks snaked across the eastern and northern borders, some stretching for hundreds of miles before a single soldier could intercept them. The army's maps filled with red arrows, each one a potential attack, each one demanding a response. The odds were brutal. For every one RLI trooper, there were 15,000 square miles of territory to cover, and thousands of potential adversaries. The bush was too vast for patrols to cover, and the enemy too fluid for fixed defenses to matter. The arms embargo meant every helicopter lost was irreplaceable, every bullet precious. Rhodesia's defenders needed to be everywhere at once, but they simply could not. The only way to survive was to rewrite the rules, to find a way to multiply force, to compress time and distance so that a handful of men could meet the enemy anywhere, at any moment. Out of this impossible equation, a new doctrine would be born. Fire Force began as an answer to a logistical impossibility. Helicopters were scarce, the territory was vast, and the enemy could vanish into the bush within minutes. The solution was a reaction package that compressed time, space, and manpower into a single, lethal system. At its core stood the K-car, an Alouette 3 helicopter armed with a 20mm cannon and commanded by the Fire Force leader. This flying command post coordinated the entire battle, orbiting above the contact zone, directing fire and relaying orders to the ground teams. Supporting the K-car were 3 G-cars, also Alouette 3 helicopters, each carrying a 4-man stick. These sticks formed the backbone of the rapid response. Their size was dictated by the G-car cabin and weight limits. Every man carried enough ammunition for a short, violent engagement. The G-cars would drop their sticks at the closest possible point to the enemy, often under fire, sometimes with seconds' notice. If the helicopters could not lift enough men, the Paradak, the Dakota transport, filled the gap. 20 paratroopers could exit the aircraft in less than 20 seconds, jumping between 300 and 500 feet. The lowest recorded operational jump was 217 feet, so low that parachutes barely had time to open before men hit the ground, sometimes landing in tangled bush or on rocky slopes. There was no margin for error. The Dakota would circle the battlefield, dropping sticks in sequence to seal escape routes or reinforce hotspots. Overhead, the Lynx, a Cessna light aircraft modified to carry rockets and napalm, provided strike power. It could suppress enemy positions, destroy cover, or mark targets for the K-Car's cannon. The entire fire force could be airborne and on target within minutes of a guerrilla sighting. None of this worked without intelligence. The Selous scouts, masters of pseudo-operations, inserted observation posts deep in the bush, often posing as insurgents themselves. These teams called in exact coordinates, allowing fire force to encircle guerrilla bands before they could scatter. The result was a tightly coordinated assault, with 20 to 30 men striking from the air, overwhelming the enemy by speed and surprise. Every component was chosen for speed, precision, and maximum force from minimum resources. The mechanics of fire force turned scarcity into a weapon and set the stage for an era of battlefield dominance. Kill ratios that once seemed impossible became routine. Between 1974 and 1976, the Rhodesian Light Infantry delivered battlefield results: 60 to 80 enemy fighters killed for every trooper lost. The rest of Rhodesia's security forces, spread thin across the country, managed 7 or 8 to 1 at best. But the RLI, now the spear point of fire force, was operating in a different league entirely. Every contact became a demonstration of doctrinal maturity. Intelligence from the Selous scouts pinpointed guerrilla positions, the K-Car directed the assault from above, and 4-man sticks hit the ground running, often within meters of their targets. The transformation was complete by 1977. The RRLI converted fully to a professional paratroop regiment, abandoning the last vestiges of its old infantry structure. The Dakota drops became second nature. 20 men out the door in less than 20 seconds, parachutes snapping open just above the treetops, landing so close to the enemy that firefights began before boots had even left the harnesses. The helicopter shortage dictated tactics. 4-man sticks instead of full squads, each man trained to react instantly, to close with the enemy at point-blank range. In the thick bush, there was no room for maneuver, only seconds to find cover, return fire, and seize the initiative. This was close combat in its rawest form. Many a troopy, still untangling his lines, would find himself face to face with a guerrilla, both men startled, weapons raised. The outcome was usually swift and one-sided. Most guerrilla bands never escaped the kill zone. The numbers told the story: hundreds of contacts, thousands of enemy dead, and a unit that seemed, for a time, untouchable. But with every victory, operational demands grew. RLI mastery on the battlefield would soon become its greatest burden. 12 days of rest and recovery stood between relentless cycles in the field. The operational rhythm became a closed loop: heliborne insertion, parachute drop, land-tail pursuit, then back to the bush for 4 to 6 weeks. At the height of the war, 3 combat jumps in a single day was not an anomaly. It was the routine. Troopers would leap, hit the ground running, fight, extract, and reload for the next call-out, sometimes on the opposite side of the country. The clock never stopped. Each successful contact only guaranteed another. The more guerrillas they killed, the more contacts poured in. Every victory fed the system, demanding more jumps, more deployments, more risk. The toll was measured in bodies and broken men. 85 RLY troopers were killed in action between 1968 and 1979. On paper, the number looked small. In reality, it was a hemorrhage. 31 died in 1979 alone, over a third of the regiment's total war dead in just 1 year. 77% of all RLI deaths came in the final 4 years. One commando, over 2 years, suffered 50 wounded and 21 killed. The official report stated that burnout in individuals could not be avoided, especially in 1979. The casualty rate, as a percentage of force, dwarfed the losses suffered by American units in Vietnam, proportionally more than 10 times higher. It approached half the rate of British losses across the entirety of World War II. But these men were not losing battles. They were being ground down by the demands of winning too many. The same small cadre rotated endlessly through the bush, jumping, fighting, and returning to base only long enough to patch wounds and bury friends. The cost of tactical perfection was exhaustion. The arithmetic was brutal. The more the RLI succeeded, the faster it bled. Today, military planners still study fire force tactics, but the lesson remains: tactical brilliance means nothing when strategy fails. Exhaustion, not defeat, ended their war. In any conflict, numbers and politics outweigh even the sharpest spear.